the power distributor everybody in the world. Now then, crew, and welcome back to the Andy Mechanic YouTube channel. And we're well into the CB750 project again, now that I'm on annual leave for a week. Yes! Right, so, plan of attack. Yesterday, we modified quite a bit of the wiring harness to do with the primary circuit, installed a relay, which is just there, which now means that no longer does the ignition switch or the kill switch carry the current for the primary circuit on the ignition coils, which is quite a bit, and it was burning out the contacts, and the bike needs a new ignition switch, and I didn't want to, put that through the same problems again in the future. So by fitting the ignition relay, that basically dramatically reduces the current flow, and the contacts in those switches don't, get burnt because of all the arcing and stuff. Anyway, if you want to watch that video, you'll find it, on one of the links. I'll put you a little link thing at the top, and you can head back to episode, I don't know, 8, probably 7, 8, who knows. Anyway, so plan of attack on this video is we've already now installed the Dyna ignition coils. They're a much more powerful ignition coil, but they don't use the same style HT leads as on the original Honda coils. As you can see here, this is one of the original coils. The HT leads are bonded in to the actual coil body, and they can't be replaced. I've seen a few videos where people have tried, but they're not really designed to be replaced. That's the point. And over time, the copper inside gets quite damaged at the point where it comes out of the coil. And on one of them, it might be this one. Now, on one of them, it was quite floppy, which sort of indicates that the copper had broken. I think it's this one here actually. It was quite loose inside there. And these have been cut down a few times over the years as new plug caps have been fitted, and they were all getting a bit short. So, Dyna coils went on, but they don't use this style. They have more of an automotive style where you have a separate HT lead that basically pushes in to the coil. Just like on a distributor cap, basically, on a car, on the old ignition systems on cars. So, this video is going to cover on how to make up a spark plug wire, if you're in America, or a HT lead, if you're UK. And it also applies not just to cars, but to any kind of motorcycle that's got that style of ignition coil on it, where the HT lead is separate to the ignition coil. So, before I started this video, a few months ago, I ordered a special kit to be able to make up my own HT leads. Because in the past, I've really only worked on Japanese motorcycles, and I didn't need to make up my own HT leads. And with cars, I would normally just go and buy a dedicated kit, a spark plug wire kit, for that particular car. But now, I can make up my own. And that's really cool because quite often, even in the kits, the spark plug wires are sometimes a little bit too short or really a little bit too long, and they sort of don't look particularly tidy. But now I can make my own. I can make a really good, tidy job. And if you're going to make a project bike where you're going to modify things, then you'll definitely need a kit like this, because you won't be able to buy off-the-shelf HT leads, most likely. Okay, let's take a look in the kit, see what we've got. So it even came in a really smart little box. I was quite impressed actually. It wasn't cheap. It was about £85 from memory, and it came from England. And I'll put you, I can't remember the company, but I'll put you a link in the description somewhere of where I actually bought this, because I think it's a really useful thing. I think a lot more people could benefit from it. So essentially in the kit, we've got the boots and the internal connectors for the spark plug end. And that's these 90-degree ones and these straight ones. As you can see again, look, that's the style of connector for those. And more importantly, what we're going to be using today on this particular project is the connectors that go into the ignition coil, or in the case of a car, most likely the distributor cap. And this kit would allow you to make up king leads. That's a lead from the coil to the distributor cap, and also leads from the distributor cap down to the spark plugs. So a very useful little kit. And we've got sort of straight connection pieces and the boots, and we've also got a 90-degree as well, because sometimes, you know, it's better to come out at right angles. Maybe you've got limited clearance and stuff, so again you can use these ones, and these are the ones that just push into the distributor cap or the ignition coil, and Harley-Davidsons would use this style as well. And also in the kit, which is one of the main reasons why I got it, is it came with these very special crimping pliers, and you can buy these separately, again from the same company, and they're an ICT7, if you can see that, ICT7 Ripka Rip Alts P9. So I don't think they're made in England, these, by the looks of it. But it's a two-stage crimp. Stage one is just here, and that just gently rounds over the little terminal, or the little pieces there, look, and then you go into the final one, which basically rolls them and makes them nice and tight on the HT lead. But we'll see more about that a bit later on when we make up our first HT lead. Now, because this is a motorcycle application, we're not going to be using the pieces or the adapters, ends, I suppose you'd call them, that go onto the HT leads for cars. This is more car stuff, really. On motorcycles, we tend to use things like this. And on the original coils, we can see we've got a straight, you know, plug cap, and it's got all the special boots and everything on there as well. And then we've also got almost, very almost a right angle. It's not quite, but it's quite long. And that's a NGK XD05F. And on the CB750, just for a point of reference, all the plug caps have got a 5 ohm resistance, 5,000 ohm, 5k ohm, 5,000 ohm resistor built into the plug cap. It's very important, if you're going to replace them, that you also replicate that, because there are different resistor value plug caps around. You can get ones with no resistors in them. I think you can get 5s and you can get 10s from memory. So, first job, oh, actually, before you start, you should also really get yourself some dielectric grease. I've got some, they also call it silicon grease, two different names for the same stuff. And this is the one from Forge. This is the S421. And Jared gave me this a while ago. I've only used a little bit of it. It's very useful. And that helps to prevent any kind of moisture intrusion, corrosion, that kind of stuff on the connections. Certainly something that you don't want on an ignition system. Okay, let's now make the end, or put on the first end on the first HT lead that goes into the ignition coil. Once we've made that, we can fit it to the bike, and then we can measure up how long the lead needs to be, cut it, and then we can fit the respective plug cap onto the lead. Now, one more thing to be aware of. It took me a while to find this, to be honest, and you'll see a bit later on once we get in there, but the core of the HT lead obviously has, this is a copper core HT lead. You can get other types as well, silicon and so on. Now, you can get a single thick strand copper, or you can get multi-strand copper. The thick strand copper, I really don't like it at all. I think you tend to find it more on lawnmowers and stuff. But when you come to fit these plug caps, they have a little screw and it goes into the inside of the HT lead, and it seems to work a lot better on the multi-strand HT leads. A single strand, they can break off really easily, nowhere near as resilient, and also they don't like vibration as much, I wouldn't say, because again, that copper's going to work harden. So every time you move the HT lead, you know, you say you're taking the spark plug out to clean it, every time you move it, it's more likely it's going to cause a break somewhere inside that, inside the insulation. Okay, down to the bench, and let's get our first end fitted. Here we go. So we've got one of the boots we're going to be using and one of the ends we're going to be using. And it's that end there that goes into the ignition coil, and it's this end that we're going to crimp over the wire. Now, first of all, we need to decide how much of the insulation we need to remove, and I would say probably about 15 millimeters maximum. So about there. I don't want to waste too much of this, because I'm getting pretty close to not having enough to do doing this job, I would say. But it's really useful to be able to make your own HT leads. You know, really helpful. Can save a lot of messing around. Right, so when you're going in with the blade, and I find a blade's the easiest way of doing it. It's a bit too much for wire strippers, to be honest. It's about a 4mm sidewall on these things. Oh, somebody's out with a strimmer. Good job. Thanks, neighbour. Okay, just working our way around. Don't want to nick the copper if I can help it. There we are. Right. Perfect. So that should now just pull off there. Brilliant. Okay, so we need to fold. In fact, first job, before we go any further, is let's just put that boot on. There's a bit of dielectric grease in there. The silicone grease. Pop that in there, and then we can get that boot. Getting cramp in my hand. We can get that boot over there, look. There we are. Superb. Straighten all that back up again. Right, get that out of the way. So, just tidy that up, and then we're going to fold that back on itself. Just there, look. And then we can lay it now into the connector. Now, we don't want to go too far because it's got a, you know, I would suggest about there. Making sure that the copper is, you know, centralized and underneath, because when this applies pressure, it's going to push it down and make a really good contact. I'm just going to roll those over a little bit, just so it sort of crimps the whole thing together gently, so I don't need too many hands. There we go, look, one more. That'll do, grommet. Okay, now for our super special crimping pliers. I'm just going to pop those over there. Now, there's no need to rush this kind of stuff. You just want to make sure that everything's lined up, because you sort of only really get one chance, and we don't want to waste any ends. And we're fully in the crimping tool there. So now we can just very gently just bring that round. Again, centralize it. And you can see it's just slowly bringing that over. You don't have to do the whole thing in one go. I find it's quite good just to keep rolling it around and give it a good squeeze. There we go, look. Super. Okay, so it's all been held together now, which is fine, but we can do a lot better. We can use the second stage, and that's going to roll these ends over and dig down into the HT lead so it holds it nice and tight. Right, are you ready? I'm just going to tight. See, I've just noticed there's a little kink just starting on the side here, so I'm just going to use that first stage just to roll that back in. There we are, look, it's gone now. Okay, into the second stage, and that should roll those ends over nicely. Give it a really good squeeze. There we go. Excellent job. Look at that. That's just how you do it. But you really need this one of these tools to do the job. Otherwise, you're going to really struggle. You're not going to get the kind of pressure on that crimp that you need. Right, that is done. And it can now be test fit into the ignition coil, so we can get an idea of how long this particular HT lead needs to be, and then we can install the spark plug cap on the other end for that respective cylinder. Hallelujah! The guy with the strimmer has taken a break. Right, we'll crack on. Okay, so we can see this is the ignition coil. I've already labelled it up, look, for future owners. This particular coil does cylinders 2 and 3. It's a weighted spark system. And we've got the two outputs just underneath here. So I need to basically push in the HT lead, the connector, into one of those. If I can get in there, it's not the easiest place to get to. And make sure it's all the way down the bottom, and then we can start to measure up. There we go. Don't need to bother putting the boot on. That's irrelevant at this point in time. Now, this does cylinders 2 and 3, so let's say cylinder number 3. So the next step is to fit the plug cap just on top of the spark plug to give us an idea of how it's positioned. I know, it's filthy. I think Alan can give it a clean. I've done way too much on this bike already. Okay, so I'm just using one of the old plug caps. So we can get it on top of the spark plug. There we are. Right, so I know it says number 2. It's the one that was on number 2 before. Right, so that's now plumbed into cylinder number 3. And all we need to do now is offer up the HT lead, give us a bit extra, and then we can cut it to length. Oh, he stopped using his lawnmower. Right, we'll crack on again. What a bloke. Now, HT lead is here. Got to bear in mind that it goes down into that HT lead by, let's say, about 20 mil, just to be on the generous side. It's always better to make them slightly too long, because what will happen over time is somebody will cut this back when it gets a bit manky inside, just to give it a fresh end for inside the inside the plug cap. So we don't want to go stupid short. We could go right down to something about that sort of length, but in reality, it's not going to last very long, is it? So let's go a little bit longer. Let's cut it, I would say, about that long. Right, where's my snippers? There we go, look. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Done. Well, we're committed now, aren't we? Okay, so we can pop that back out of the coil, head back to the bench, and we can fit the plug cap to this end now. Easy. Now, the plug cap that's used on cylinders 2 and 3 on the CB750 is, as we've already seen the old one, it's the straight one. Now, the part number for this is, there you go, look, was it SZ05F? If you need to order one, that's what you need. An NGK, really, really good brand. Not a sponsor of the channel, something I've used all my life, which is getting longer by the day, obviously. And they are really good quality. I do like them, I must admit. I'm a big fan of NGK stuff. If NGK is listening, feel free to send me some stuff if you like. A nice spark plug chart would be good for in the workshop. And we can refer to that when we need to, can't we? Right. See if I can get it out first. I got these ages ago to do this particular job, and it's been a funny kind of a year. It was 2020. We're just starting 2021, so fingers crossed things will be a little bit different. Right, first job is we need to remove the boot at the top, and then we can put that down the HT lead. Right, said Fred. So first job is going to be to install that boot. That's got to go on first. So a bit of that dielectric grease again, just to act as a lubricant more than anything else to start off with. There we go. See what it leaves? Look, there's a really good residue. It's excellent stuff. It really is. I do like it. Right, so we'll pop him down there, out of the way. And the next job is to install the actual plug cap. And you can see on these NGK ones, they've got like a thread, almost like a self-tapping screw sticking up in there. So it's absolutely critical that we get that screw to go down the middle of the copper, ideally. We don't want it to run off down one side. So I'm going to get my little scriber, my little pick. I'm just going to open that out slightly to get it started. Right, I'm just going to pop that down the middle. It's just a little right-angled scriber pick thing. And that's going to help to guide the screw down the middle. There we go. So you can see there's a little hole now right in the middle of all that copper. So we'll stick some more dielectric grease down there. And then we're going to screw that on. Just holding it central. And you can see now why a single strand copper wire isn't really ideal for this particular application. You remember on the old lawnmower spark plugs, they had a very different kind of setup. Right, we are in. That is good and tight. So again, a bit more spray. And then we can offer the boot back down. There we go, look. Nice and snug. Bloody good. Right, we have just made up a HT lead, or spark plug wire, depending on where you're from, for a motorcycle with Dyna coil. Easy really, isn't it? But you do need the right tools, and we did use this specialist tool. Without it, I think you'd really struggle. And the kit wasn't that expensive. It's always nice to have more toys in the workshop, isn't it? Now, I've got 3 more of these to make up. Another one of similar length for cylinder number 2 off the same ignition coil, and then 2 longer ones to go to cylinders 1 and 4 from the other Dyna ignition coil. So there's no point in you watching me making them all up. I'll get them made up now, and then we'll install them. See you shortly. And as if by magic, a few seconds later, all 4 are made up, and I've been labeling them all up as well, so that anybody that removes them in the future, it's pretty obvious how they go back on again. You know, that's not just, you know, they are length dependent. You know, they need to be in the right position, otherwise one may be too long, another one too short. But also, you know, if you change, somebody's changing the spark plugs and they put the wrong HT lead on the wrong cylinder, it's not going to run very well. Especially if you put, say, for example, cylinder 1 HT lead onto cylinder number 2 and vice versa. It could be a bit of a problem. Anyway, before I install these, I'm actually going to take the ignition coils off and fit these ends off the bike, because I want to make sure that they're a nice snug fit and that the boots are on properly, because this will be the last time that I actually remove these off the bike before it goes back to the owner. So, ignition coils off, and we'll fit those bits on the bench. Oakley dokley. Well, that's ignition coil that does cylinders 1 and 4. So, a little bit more dielectric grease down there on these 2. Don't need a lot, just a little bit. Okay, now this is plug cylinder number 1, so that's got to go in there. So again, we'll just stick a little bit on the actual contacts. And in he goes. I want to make sure it's a nice tight fit. Yes, that's pretty good. Quite happy with that. So we'll stick a bit inside the boot. And we're going to make sure that boot's a really good seal over that coil. Because we don't want moisture getting in. Moisture is the enemy, isn't it? Looks pretty good. Yep, quite happy with that one. Okay, now, next one. Same again, Sam. A little bit inside the cap, a little bit on the actual connection itself. It's really important that they're a good tight fit. You can always adjust them a little bit if need be. There we go. That's ready to go back on the bike. Super job. It's done! Fully installed, new spark plugs, and I even gapped the plugs when I fitted them. Pretty cool. So what was the total cost of this particular job? Well, the HT lead, friends down at Murray Motorcycles were very kind to give me that HT lead. It had been in their workshop for many, many years. Kieran said to me, I didn't even know he had it. So he was quite happy to pass that on. The actual kit to do the ends, that was about £87 from memory, plus probably a bit of shipping, but I did buy some other stuff at the same time, so we can sort of share that out a little bit. What else? The plug caps, well, just grabbing one of the boxes. All these came from Derby Accessories in Auckland. These are readily available through any of your motorcycle shops. You can even go online to the NGK website. I think it's ngk.com from memory. And you can look at all the different types, so you can work out what you need and just go to the bike shop and tell them the part number. That's the best way of doing it. Otherwise, they'll probably try and sell you one that they've already got in stock, which may not be the best one for that particular job. Also, be fully aware of the ohms rating of the plug caps. That's really, really important. Don't just choose one that's the right shape. You need to get one that's the correct ohms rating too, and that will be in your service manual. What else? Well, that's about it really. So free HT lead, had to buy a kit, but the kit's going to last me for probably the rest of my life, to be honest, and probably Ben's life as well. Pass it down through the family. It could be an heirloom at some point. And of course, you know, the plug caps, these were, I don't know, these were probably about $15 each, something like that, from memory. Can't really remember, it's been a while. So not particularly expensive, and certainly here in New Zealand, the whole lot, not really that much more money than buying a full HT lead kit for a car. And you know, being able to make up my own, I can get them just the right length, and if I need to replace just one, I can do that again in the future. Dead easy. So hopefully you found this video helpful. It's going to relate to not just making up HT leads for cars, but also for some types of motorcycles as well. And if you're fitting the Dyna ignition kit, so the ignition coils to your bike, I would highly recommend fitting the electronic ignition as well at the same time. Will make a huge difference to the performance of the bike and for cold starting and just reliability overall. Plus, of course, less maintenance. You know, points ignition, although it's a great thing in its time, you do need to regularly adjust those points to keep your bike at optimum performance. So if you found the video helpful, why not click on the subscribe button? You can ring the bell, turn on notifications, and our friends at YouTube will send you a notification, an email normally, to let you know as and when any new videos are being uploaded to the channel. That way you won't miss any more on the CB750 project or the DR200 that I'm also on with at the moment. And there's also about a back catalogue of about 550 videos already on the channel. So if I don't happen to upload a video that particular week, don't panic. There's lots and lots of other videos to go back at and dig through the archives and find. You'll spot a much younger Andy Mechanic on there too. Yeah, I've not aged well, to be honest. Now, supporting the channel, you can do that through Patreon. You can go on there, you can become a patron to the channel and donate a regular amount per month if you like, or do a one-off payment. Or you can go on to PayPal and just use the email address andymechanic@live.co.uk and send something through that way. Anything received is muchly appreciated. It really is, and it's that your kind of donations that really help to do these kind of projects. They're not cheap. There's well over $1,000 gone into this bike already, and you know, there's still a long way to go, believe me. But again, for those that have helped up until now, donated, made pledges, whatever, thank you very much. We really do appreciate it. Without your help, it'd be much more difficult to produce a channel like this. Now, you'll also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Feel free to communicate through any of those portals, or you can even just flick me an email on the email address that I gave you earlier on. It's actually in the description too. Finally, if you fancy some Andy Mechanic merch, you can drop onto the Zazzle store. Again, link in the description, and you'll see a heap of Andy Mechanic merch. Choose what you like, and delivery is actually pretty quick, depending on where you are in the world. I've bought quite a lot of stuff from there just to use in-house as well, and I've found it to be excellent quality. Right, well, that's it for this particular episode on the CB750 K2 project. Believe it or not, the next job, I think, is going to be to fit the electronic ignition. Ooh, that means we're going to get a spark. That means we could try and start the bike. That'll be fun. Right, until next time, cheers, over and out. And we get the flip again. Oh.